and good morning, everybody else.
You have the floor.
Thank you so much. I've placed a fact sheet in front of you for a few points, but I will not read them. You can read them at your leisure and ask questions accordingly. But I'd like to, probably try to anticipate what your questions will be. One is why EPR, extended producer responsibility,
Do I have a sign-in sheet?
and the other would be why a study committee. I don't think there's one answer that will put New Hampshire back on track when it comes to managing our waste flow, which is out of control right now. There will most likely be a combination of both upstream and downstream solutions, with extended producer responsibility playing a vital role in the process. It makes sense for both producers and municipalities to embrace product design that has a focus on sustainability, achievability, and consistency. So I see this as a first step in internalizing the cost of disposal to product design. Well-drafted EPR legislation will place a cost of disposal rightly upon the creators of the product and establish a clear line of responsibility that will relieve local governments and taxpayers from the hidden costs of disposal. And so a few words of how it may work. It is commonly enacted by a state entity by contracting with established packing material stewardship organization. The stewardship program collects information on the waste stream costs from participating municipalities with the purpose of bringing these costs back to the producers. With some exceptions, and we can always figure out what they are later, producers will be liable to pay into a fund based on the products they sell or distribute, in this case in New Hampshire. Producer payments received by the stewardship organization will be used to reimburse participating municipalities for certain recycling and waste management costs. So municipalities will win when they reduce their waste flow, and it should also result in reduced tipping fees. So this bill, speaking of the other aspect of it, it contains no legislation except for a study proposal. It narrowly focuses on establishing the parameters in which extended producer responsibility legislation may be drafted. I firmly believe that this issue requires bringing all interested stakeholders together to adopt a plan that you can all adhere to. While I am loath to suggest yet another study committee, in this particular case, I think that building consensus is essential as a first step in creating viable legislation. And as a study bill, my intent with the parameters of this is broad, I'll admit that. My personal focus would be on single-use packaging, but it would be within the committee's prerogative to look at any aspect of our waste flow, from used tires to electronics to hazardous waste. And a study committee can also reflect the needs of all stakeholders in a way that an individual drafter of such legislation may be incapable of doing. This is not about an individual crusade, but about working together and drafting balanced and effective legislation. And this is why I ask for your support.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Seeing none? Thank you very much,
Thank
Representative. Representative Bigsby.
Good morning. For the record, I'm Representative Peter Bixby from Dover, New Hampshire, representing Stratford 13, and I'm also the ranking member of House E&A. And this bill came before our committee, and when it was introduced, it addressed EPR as a way that could be used as meeting solid waste reduction goals and in saving money for municipalities. In the course of our discussion, the committee felt that the duties needed further clarification. So what section 2 of the duties now does is it recommends looking at how EPR can function in currently functions in other jurisdictions, and proposes and looks at types of solid waste and suggests certain types of solid waste that EPR could be used as a solution for. And that's a fairly broad scope at which the study committee could narrow depending on what they are learning in the process of studying. Section 3 recommends selecting some of the results from Section 2 and assessing how they might fit into the existing New Hampshire solid waste recovery infrastructure. And Section 4 recommends soliciting input from a broad range of stakeholders, including manufacturers and distributors. And the hoped for end result is potential legislation and rulemaking that would use EPR to help reduce New Hampshire's solid waste burden. And I just have one example from my own experience in terms of how this, why this needs to be a study committee rather than just putting in a single legislator putting in a bill. A couple of terms ago, I put in a bill for using extended producer responsibility for electronic waste, and I simply looked at other laws out there in other places in the country, found one that I thought might mesh well with New Hampshire, and turned that into a bill for New Hampshire. I made the mistake of not discussing this very much with DES, and DES said they liked the concept, but the execution suggestion of the bill was so far off the mark for New Hampshire that it wouldn't be amendable to something that would work within the allotted time. So that is one reason that the study stresses the idea of making sure that these EPR solutions would mesh with New Hampshire's current infrastructure. And it's also why, because this requires really looking at a broad range of options and figuring out what will work for New Hampshire, it needs to be a study committee rather than someone just putting in a bill.
Thank you for your testimony.
I'm happy to take questions.
Absolutely. We're going to ask anybody. Senator Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative. So my understanding from what you told me is that the existing Solid Waste Commission is kind of booked up in its agenda and thinks this would be a good idea to have this particular issue looked at by a different study committee.
Yes, so the Solid Waste Working Group has their agenda for the year, and this doesn't really fit in this year's agenda, so this would help it move forward faster.
Thank you. Thank you. Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much, Representative.
Thank you.
Representative Dussy?
No, I'm not speaking.
Nope.
I'm sorry, did I have myself erroneously on the list?
No, you didn't do either way.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm giving you the
I'm
option.
supporting the bill, but
You
I'm
are
not-
supporting, yes.
If I had something valuable to say, I would, but.
No, the fact that you're here to support it is a good sign. All right. Nora from CLF, please. Welcome.
Thank you.
You are our final speaker.
Sorry?
You're the final
Final
speaker.
speaker.
Yeah.
Sorry. Probably too many. Good morning, Chairman and honorable committee members. My name is Nora Bosworth. I'm the Zero Waste Staff Attorney for Northern New England at the Conservation Law Foundation. And CLF strongly supports HB 253. As a general matter, as you have heard, extended producer responsibility programs make manufacturers responsible for the end-of-life management of the products that they create. And today I want to focus on the most comprehensive form of EPR laws to date, which are called EPR for packaging programs, which Maine was the first state to enact in the country, followed shortly by Oregon, California, and Colorado. In both Maine and Oregon, the passage of the law was preceded by a legislative commission and stakeholder process that studied how to best develop and implement an EPR for packaging law that meets the needs and challenges facing the state. If passed, HB 253 could begin a similar process for New Hampshire. New Hampshire municipalities, like many across the nation, are drowning in packaging waste. The US EPA estimates that packaging makes up roughly a third of all municipal solid waste, and taxpayers and municipalities are solely responsible for paying to manage all of this packaging waste. Meanwhile, the large companies that produce the waste in the first place do not have fiscal responsibility. An EPR for packaging law fixes this disconnect by shifting the financial responsibility for recycling and managing packaging waste from taxpayers to the companies that create and manufacture the waste. And under an EPR for packaging program, these large companies will pay fees based on the quantity and quality of packaging material that they sell in the state. So companies pay higher fees for packaging that is not readily recyclable or that contains particularly toxic chemicals. And this incentivizes those companies to reduce the amount of packaging they produce and also redesign the remaining packaging to be more eco-friendly and economical. And then the money generated from these fees, as you've heard, is used to reimburse the municipalities for the cost of managing the packaging waste and for investing in recycling education and infrastructure development throughout the state. In places where EPR for packaging laws are currently operating, recycling rates have substantially increased, and the rise in recycling significantly reduced pressure on landfill capacity while saving municipalities and taxpayers money. So this legislation could be, in New Hampshire, could be a critical policy tool for reaching the state's recently adopted solid waste goals, and decreasing solid waste disposal in general advances goals 1, 3, and 4 of New Hampshire's Solid Waste Management Plan, in which exploring EPR programs was highlighted as a critical method for achieving source reduction and waste diversion. For all these reasons, CLF urges you to vote ought to pass on HB 253. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. And we're going to close the hearing on this. And is there a motion to move into exec? So moved. Okay, is there a motion on this bill?
Ought to pass.
Senator Bertzel ought to pass. Senator Lohr seconds it. Discussion. All in favor of ought to pass?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Seeing how you made the motion, would you like to take it out?
Sure.
All right. Senator Bertzel, is there a motion to move out of exec?
Well, if Senator Pearl shows up, can we reconsider and
We can if we want.
put it on consent? But yeah,
We'll let you
move
take
out
it
of
out.
consent? I mean, move out of exec.
That too, right. Seconded. All in favor of out of exec?
Aye.
All right. We are out of exec, and now we'll hear from the sponsor of 251, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be glad to introduce House Bill 251 relative to the cost of compliance with disclosure of electric renewable portfolio standards.
You are recognized.
And I will thank you, and I will say that we have included, I'm a little slow today. We have included the substance of this legislation in House Bill 281. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator, and appreciate you doing that. And we only have one person wanting to speak who's absolutely neutral. So he made that very clear. Josh, welcome from the Department of Energy. Or Energy, yeah.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Again, Josh Elliott, Director of the Division of Policy and Programs, Department of Energy. I will be brief. As Senator Waters pointed out, this is already included in House Bill 281. If there is a desire to move this bill forward, just as an addition to that, I would just recommend changing the words Commission on line 5 and Public Utilities Commission on line 11 to reflect department instead.
Line 5 where it says commission.
Yep, so line 5 where it says commission, and then including
places?
both places on line 5.
Yep.
And then on line 11, just a reference to the Department of Energy's website in place of the Public Utilities Commission's website.
Nick, do you have that?
And if I may ask, Mr. Chairman, we did this in 281.
Yes, this would, if on the off chance you happen to move forward with this bill as well, that would just ensure that there's no many collisions further down the line as bills are getting signed into law.
What is the status of 281 right now? Do you know?
I think it was voted on by the Senate last week. I think it has gone over to the House for their either concurrence or request to committee conference, I believe. I don't know if they've taken action on it.
Well, we can wait 1 week, I guess, right? Do I have that? Do I have that luxury? Yeah, I'm not asking you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know when's their next session scheduled? I don't know when they're going to do concurrences, but in the fullness of time, they'll do concurrences, but
I would just re-refer it. Think about re-referring it.
Yeah, well,
whatever you want, Mr.
but
Chairman.
we're not in exec, so.
And I'm not a voting member.
All right, and so I'm going to ask you to start all over for Nick because his binder is now cooperating.
Sure. Okay, so on line 5, the word commission, the two references to commission on line 5 should be the department instead. And then on line 11, instead of at the Public Utilities Commission's website, it should be the Department of Energy's website.
Got it.
Okay,
And for any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
thank you.
So with that, we're going to close the hearing because nobody else wants to talk about it. Motion to move into exec by Senator Birdsell, seconded by Senator
Second.
Waters. All in favor of exec?
Aye.
Discussion.
Re-refer?
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, discussion. Seeing nothing, all in favor of re-refer?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Who would like to take this out?
I'll take it out.
Senator Birdsell, seeing how she made the motion, is going to take it out. And we'll do that. And so is there a motion to move out of exec?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so now we'll hear from the prime sponsor.
Let's go.
Gotta wait a few minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
We're
Oh
too
my God.
efficient.
What am I going to do with myself? All right.
Awesome.
All right, so. Yeah, I got- all right. So we got 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Good job with that. Welcome back, everybody. And so now we'll hear from the prime sponsor of 211. And just this? Oh my gosh, who is this guy?
I'd be happy to introduce House
I'm
Bill
kidding.
211, relative report by Department of Energy and the effectiveness of the system benefits charge. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, questions from the committee. I'm just kidding. Josh, you are recognized again.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Josh Elliott, Director of the Division of Policy and Programs. In a rare double header, I'm testifying both on behalf of the Department of Energy and the Department of Environmental Services. We are in support of this bill. This just removes the Department of Environmental Services from the requirement to submit to both this committee and House ST&E our annual report on the Systems Benefits Charge, or the SBC. I believe this was picked up accidentally last year in one of the cleanup bills, because similar language for this is used for the RGGI program, which DES does in part help to implement for the state along with the Department of Energy. Systems Benefits Charge, that is 100% the Department of Energy and Department of Environmental Services. Really has no role in creating the report or doing the report or providing any information as part of that. So this is just a technical cleanup.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to close the hearing on this. Is there a motion to move? Is there a second? Second by Senator Bertzel. Okay, so is there a motion to reconsider on 253, please?
I will move to reconsider.
All right, all in favor of reconsider?
Aye.
All right, is there a motion to ought to pass on 253?
I think Senator Bertzel was delighted to offer that motion earlier.
Yes, I was.
Is there a second on
I'll
that?
second.
Okay, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Move
seeing none.
consent?
Okay, you got that, Nick? All in favor of consent?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none? Thank you, thank you.
I'll
She-
take it out.
yep.
Still.
Is there a motion to reconsider
So
251?
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of reconsider?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, discussion. Is there a motion to, ought to pass?
Aye.
We got to repeal, don't we have to repeal and
Oh.
re-refer?
Yeah.
Is there a motion to repeal or re-refer?
I'll pull my re-refer. Who seconded it?
Oh, I did. Yeah, excuse me. I'm sorry. Second.
Oh, that's right. There you go.
Second.
All in favor of motion to repeal, re-refer? Right?
She pulled her motion.
Oh, you pulled your motion, so is there a motion to ought to pass?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second, but, so, was there any thought, Mr. Chairman, you wanted to hold this in terms of what happens with 281?
We're
or-
gonna do that with, through, yeah, we'll just ask.
Mr. Chair, why don't you go through the process of what you were saying?
Yeah, so, let's just, all in favor of ought to pass?
Okay, fine. Yes, aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, is there a motion to move to consent?
Oh, excuse me. Mr. Chairman, I move the committee amendment on 251, which Nick has.
Yes, that's correct.
All right,
Yes,
With the language
the
change.
committee amendment, correct. I apologize.
just in case.
Just trying to be fast like lightning. And so we're slowing it down now. You got the committee amendments already written down. All in favor of the committee amendments of changing commission to the Department of Education? I'm kidding, of Energy.
Aye.
Aye.
And there was a second of my motion for the
Second.
committee amendment? Okay.
Yes.
So I'll move ought to pass as amended.
All in
Second.
favor of ought to pass as amended?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Is there a motion to move to consent?
So moved.
Okay, okay, all in favor of consent?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. Who wants to take it out?
I'll take it. I'm still on it.
Perfect.
I'll
Would you
take
like
it
a
out.
motion on 211, Mr. Chairman?
Is there a motion on 211?
There is now. I'll move ought to pass.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Seeing none.
Consent?
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay. All in favor of consent?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Senator Waters, would you like to do the?
Oh, I'd be delighted.
Okay. Is
It'd
there a
make,
motion
it'd
to
make
move
my year.
out of exec? Any opposed? Seeing none, we are now out of exec, and we still got a lot of time, right?
Tick, 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 tick.
All right, so we'll be in recess until the next meeting, until the next hearing.
This is another study committee. What are your thoughts on this one? Have you seen it? You better. Yeah, you better. It involves you.
This involves me.
I mean, I don't know what this, I mean, the House gonna do its duty, but I think
Thank you, Senator Pearl. So, HB 221, Representative Bixby, as the prime sponsor, you are recognized.
Thank you. For the record, Peter Bixby, Dover, New Hampshire, Stratford County 13, and House E&A. So this HB 221 was a department request, and the bill as amended modifies the soil conservation and farmland preservation subdivision of RSA 432. This section deals with acquisition of agricultural land development rights as a way to preserve farmland. The section was set up in the 1980s when the mechanisms for land preservation were very different than they are now. And those state laws now impede the department from getting matching grants from the federal government and from working cooperatively with land trusts to oversee preserved property. The department doesn't have the resources to oversee more property than it already has under agreement, and private land trusts now have better resources and infrastructure to manage this aspect of land preservation. So this bill reworks the old statutes to make it possible for the department to work cooperatively with land trusts and to seek federal matching funds and oversee newly preserved properties. And I would ask that you save questions for Jeremy Lucci from the Southeast Land Trust.
Thank you very much. And so, would anybody like not to ask a question? Thank you, Representative Bixby. Well, Jeremy, you've been...
Sure.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time today.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Representative Bixby, Kaplan, and Aaron for sponsoring this important bill. Thank you, Chairman Avard, Vice Chairman Pearl, and Senators for hearing. So the goal for this to amend the language of RSA 432 to provide the state of New Hampshire with an ability to hold the right of enforcement on agricultural land development rights rather than the right to hold the restrictions themselves. This flexibility will allow New Hampshire's land trust to use the ALP program and its funds to match federal dollars available through the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Natural Resource Conservation Services Agricultural Conservation Easement Plan. ACEP is the acronym, provides critical assistance for farmland conservation in New Hampshire. But in order to leverage those federal funds effectively, land trusts must find matching dollars at the state and local level. Without these matching funds, these federal dollars go unspent, particularly in the wake of the upcoming U.S. Farm Bill, which is predicted to dramatically increase those funds available for farmland conservation in New Hampshire. For those of you not well versed in farmland protection, I'd like to provide a few statistics regarding farmland in New Hampshire. Before I do so, I'd like to respectfully ask you a series of simple questions about whether farmland protection is important to you and your everyday lives here in New Hampshire. Do you eat food? And if so, do you know where that food comes from? Are you certain that food will always be available? And if so, what guarantees do you have? If our international food supply chain were disrupted by drought, flood, war, or pandemic, how would New Hampshire's citizens feed themselves? If New Hampshire doesn't protect its remaining farmland, where will we turn when our grocery store shelves are empty? From 1925 to 2008, New Hampshire lost 90% of its farmland. According to the American Farmland Trust, New Hampshire lost another 11,600 acres of farmland from 2001 to 2016. At this pace, New Hampshire is predicted to lose another 35,600 acres of farmland by 2040. Once lost, that land has almost never returned to its use as a farm. Here in New Hampshire, more than 5 times as many farmers are over the age of 65 as under the age of 35, meaning that our remaining farmland will be extremely susceptible to conversion over the next 15 to 25 years. Land trusts like the Southeast Land Trust of New Hampshire protect hundreds of acres of farmland in New Hampshire each year using programs like the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program. When we protect farmland, we often see the communities in New Hampshire with less financial resources are unable to protect their farms because it costs too much. Without a dedicated funding source for farmland protection at the state level, less affluent communities often miss out, a loss not only for the farmer and the municipality, but for the state of New Hampshire in general, because we lose that ability to feed ourselves in times of need. With HB 221's proposed changes, land trusts will be able to use the ALP funds to leverage that federal funding program and to protect the last of New Hampshire's farmland before it is lost forever. Your next meal may depend on it. So thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions. We have the New Hampshire Food Alliance here that shared with you a handout and the American Farmland Trust as well.
And that was Nicole Cardwell, that's in support, strong support. Matt Leahy's very much in strong support, but not wishing to speak. So we're going to ask Senator Pearl. You have a question?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for coming in. So reading the bill, we're moving from 7 to 8 voting members. Is there a mechanism within the board to break a tie?
Yep. This was brought up when the House committee was discussing the matter, and I had suggested adding another member from the land trust community. Right now, the proposal is to have one member from the community appointed by the governor, but in light of the fact that the land trusts are doing the lion's share of the land protection here, I suppose having 2 members from the land trust community might not be a bad idea.
Thank you. Follow up. Second question, on section 4, well, section 3 and I guess it's page 2 anyway, section 3 and section 2 of part 5 talk about the ability of the landowner to repurchase the rights back at some point in time in the future. Is this unique to this specific type of land trust? Because of the ones that I've been involved in the past, that provision was never available, at least not that I've seen.
Yes, that's one of the things that we're looking to change actually from the existing statute. That is incompatible with the federal program.
Right.
So the section that talks about release allows the state to move forward with its current system. However, the deed terms for the pairing of the programs would not allow that to happen. The federal program simply would not allow it. So
Right, I follow up if I may.
Yeah.
I just went through this. I did a conservation easement on my farm. That's why I was reading
Yeah.
this, and I was kind of like, huh, this is different. I haven't seen it because I don't believe NRCS dollars would allow you to do that.
they sure wouldn't. You know, when the ALP program was set up back in the late 70s, early 80s, it was, you know, one of the first of its kind, and the NRCS programs weren't around, and land conservation has changed dramatically since then. So
does this need to be changed?
no, we actually proposed the language that would make that adjustment in the release language, section 432.24.
Are there any other stakeholders that might want to, instead of there being 2 from your organization, to another outside or concerned people that could be part of the 9, if you will, or?
Yeah, so, you know, my thought is, Matt Leahy is here on behalf of the New Hampshire Land Trust Coalition. The land trusts are all a part of this coalition. We're a very succinct group, and I think we would have no trouble, you know, mounting 2 members based on the governor's choice. And I assume that it would be, you know, regionally selected so that there'd be a good, you know.
If I may, I would say, I guess my only thought on that is it sort of weighs the board a little bit heavily in the Land Trust Coalition. I'm just reading the other members as we were talking about that. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I'm just kind of weighing that quickly in my head, making sure we're keeping the balance appropriate. My thought, either that or perhaps another public member who are operators of farms in the state, because that, you know, maybe add another one there. Might be a spot that I would.
Yeah, they do. You know, I know right now they have a dairy farmer. I believe it's Alan Smith from Greenland that's representing the public. So I don't think there'd be a problem with that. In fact, I'm working with Alan right now to conserve his farm. So that would be incredibly valuable to have a.
Yeah, that's a great piece of property.
Yeah, it sure is.
So are we recommending another farm, but with the requirement? Go ahead.
Maybe we want to do this in exec session,
Obviously.
I'm not sure, but I mean, I guess my recommendation would be maybe to make it 4 members, 3 of whom are owners or operators of farms in the state. That gives a real interest toward agriculture. Just a thought. Would you have any objection to that?
As a question.
I would not personally.
No, Matt's saying yes. Yeah. Hey, Josh, you're here. What do you think?
There's two Joshes.
Oh, Josh? All right. Any further questions from the committee? Senator Altshuler? Oh, okay. Sorry for dragging this out.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We just talked about line 11E, possibly bumping that from 3 members, 2 of whom are owners, and to 4 members, 3 of whom are owners. I think I'm missing something. Who's the last one? What is their affiliation if they're not an owner? Previous owner, or if it was 3 and there were 2 members who are owners or operators, or 4 and there are 3 members, there's still 1 left. What's their affiliation?
Senator,
Like-
I might be able to answer
Yeah,
that question
please.
for you. The last remaining member would just be a public member named by the governor.
Governor.
Just, the stipulation currently is that there are 3 public members, 2
Sure.
of whom have to be owners or operators of farms, and the 3rd one is up to the governor's discretion. And this would leave that same balance.
Would it make sense to just have all farmers?
Well, the only problem with that, if I
Yeah,
may respond,
like-
the only problem with that is the governor may want to have, sometimes it's good to have a professional member, could be a land assessor or something like that, or a surveyor, someone that has some other technical knowledge that can be very beneficial to the process. So you leave that option open. It could be a farmer, but it doesn't have to be.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And thank you, Josh, for being there.
Both Josh.
Josh is. Let's see, Chelsea? Is it Kelsey? I don't know. I can't read my own. I can't read. From the American Farm Land and Trust, you are our final speaker.
Good morning. My name is Chelsea Gazzillo, and I'm the New England Policy Manager for American Farmland Trust. It's nice to be here with you all this morning. Thank you, Senator Avard.
Something like that.
Something like that. And Senator Pearl, congratulations on recently protecting your farm. It's very rare that I get to sit in front of a legislator who's gone through the process and understands all of the complex steps that it takes to put an agricultural easement on their property. So,
It was a long 5 years of my life.
well, my goal at American Farmland Trust is to get these, the time it takes from submitting an application to closing down to 2 years, because 5 years is a long time to be in this process, and we don't have that long to protect these farms. Farms are very, very vulnerable in the region to development, as Jeremy mentioned. Okay, so there's just a few additional points that I wanted to make in addition to the ones that Jeremy already stated. So the first is that, as Jeremy mentioned, this is one of the oldest purchase of agricultural conservation easement programs in the region. And we know that programs change and we have to bring them up to date to be in alignment with the times that we're living in. And when this program was created, USDA did not have the agricultural conservation easement program that Jeremy mentioned. So this isn't, this statute amendment would put this program in alignment with the agricultural conservation easement program and thus allow the state of New Hampshire to leverage further federal dollars. When Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act last summer, they allocated nearly $20 billion to conservation programs at USDA, including additional funding to the agricultural conservation easement program. And New Hampshire is what we call a regional equity state. So that means that New Hampshire is set up to receive additional funding from that program because the cost of production in this state is higher than in other regions of the country. And so updating the statute to make it so that we can leverage more federal dollars will really put New Hampshire in a good place as that money starts coming in. And then the last point I wanted to make is that oftentimes the funding that a farmer receives from selling their agricultural or their development rights, they use to reinvest into the property, or they might use it to look at succession planning and how they can pass the property down to the next generation and keep it in agriculture. And so as we look at the future of our food system in the region, making sure that we keep farms, especially farms that are prime and important for agricultural production in production, will be key. And this is one thing we can do to ensure that. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Senator Pearl.
More of a comment than a question. Thank you for your testimony. And I will say that when the federal government moved to allow maple orchards to move in and be considered as cultivated land, that was a huge improvement to the program because it was very difficult to meet the 50-50 qualification of open land and cultivated land versus forest land prior to that. So that has been a huge boon for the Northeast region to help us be able to participate in these programs a bit better. So thank you for what you do and appreciate you coming in today.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing to that, is that most agricultural land in the region is adjacent to forest land, so I agree with that.
And you are all set with our little discussion on adding that extra member?
Yeah, adding an extra farmer would put the ALP in alignment, or the ALPC in alignment with other similar entities in the region. So in Connecticut, the Connecticut Department of Agriculture runs the Farmland Preservation Advisory Board, which has a very similar function to the ALPC. And I believe there are 4 or 5 farmer operators on that board, as well as land trust members and Farm Bureau and experts in agricultural appraisals, assessments, etc.
Great. Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you so much.
We're going to close the hearing on this and a motion to move into exec. Seconded by Senator Pearl. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. So we have an amendment that we want to put to it.
Do you want to wait for Senator Waters or? So that
I don't know when he's coming back.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's get her done.
Okay.
So you had an amendment.
Sure. So as a committee amendment, my suggestion would be we move to 9 voting members. And on line 11E, which is letter E, we move from 3 members to 4 members.
On which page?
That's page 1, so line 11.
Mm-hmm.
So we move from 3 members to 4 members, and from 2 of whom are owners to 3 of whom are owners and operators. That will still keep the board heavily weighted toward those with an agricultural background, and I think you'll find they're good subject matter experts on these, because you'll probably find many of us have either been through the process or considered going through the process. Sometimes not going through it has its reasons too, but I think you'll provide a lot of another good subject matter expert.
Okay, so on line E, 3 members move to 4, 2 members move to 3.
And on line 3, we move 8 to 9 voting members. That way we keep an odd number, so we avoid the opportunity for a tie.
You have that, Nick?
Yeah.
All right.
Is the non-voting members, are we doing anything with that, or do we need the same?
If that's been working, I'm fine with leaving it the same.
Yeah. So he moves, Senator Pearl moves this amendment, or is
I'll
everybody?
second.
Okay, seconded by Senator Bertzel. Discussion, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move on to pass as amended.
Second.
Seconded by Senator Bertzel. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Senator Pearl, because you are a farmer.
I will be happy to take it.
All right, we love that. And is there a motion to move out of exec? And all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And the committee is now dismissed. I get to start this. Yay. Thank you very much.